Hey guys, Sam from Manfa Makes. How are you all? Hi to all my returners and hi to any newbies. It is so great to see you here on a Sunday. I know weekends are precious to us all, and the fact that you've come to join me is amazing. So, if you are new here, on a Saturday and a Sunday, I read you stories from this book here, which is Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. We have already read quite a few stories and it has its own playlist here on my channel. And I also read The Wizard of Oz, which has its own playlist as well. But I don't just read stories, guys. I am a crochet channel and there is lots of yarn and crochet content to be found. So do please have a look around and see if there is some content for you. Now, a lot of you crafters love listening to audiobooks while you craft away, and that is what I try to do on a Saturday and a Sunday, just a bit more of a chilled, relaxed vibe going on. So this book was written a very, very long time ago. Any themes, opinions, meanings, anything like that are those of the authors. I am not saying that I share them or that I agree or that they are opinions of my own. All I am simply doing is reading you the words off of the pages and giving you something to listen to while you do your crafting. So let us begin. The book will be on the table. I will be looking down at the book in order to read. There is nothing to pay attention to on screen, so you just busily craft away and listen to the stories as I tell them. So we start today on story 122, which is Donkey Cabbages. There was once a young hunter who went into the forest to lie in wait. He had a fresh and joyous heart, and as he was going there, whistling upon a leaf, an ugly old crone came up, who spoke to him and said, "Good day, dear hunter, truly you are merry and contented, but I am suffering from hunger and thirst. Do give me an alms." The hunter had compassion on the poor old creature, felt in his pocket, and gave her what he could afford. He was then about to go further, but the old woman stopped him and said, "Listen, dear hunter, to what I tell you. I will make you a present in return for your kindness. Go on your way now, but in a little while you will come to a tree where 9 birds are sitting, which have a cloak in their claws, and are plucking at it. Take your gun and shoot into the middle of them. They will let the cloak fall down to you, but one of the birds will be hurt and will drop down dead. Carry away the cloak. It is a wishing cloak. When you throw it over your shoulders, you only have to wish to be in a certain place and you will be there in the twinkling of an eye. Take out the heart of the dead bird and swallow it whole, and every morning early when you get up, you will find a gold piece under your pillow." The hunter thanked the wise woman and thought to himself, "Those are fine things that she has promised me if all does but come true." And verily, when he had walked about 100 paces, he heard in the branches above him such a screaming and twittering that he looked up and saw there a crowd of birds who were tearing a piece of cloth about with their beaks and claws, and tugging and fighting as if each wanted to have it all to himself. "Well," said the hunter, "this is wonderful. It has really come to pass just as the old wife foretold." And he took the gun from his shoulder, aimed and fired right into the middle of them, so that the feathers flew about. The birds instantly took to flight with loud outcries, but one dropped down dead, and the cloak fell at the same time. Then the hunter did as the old woman had directed him, cut open the bird, sought the heart, swallowed it down, and took the cloak home with him. Next morning, when he awoke, the promise occurred to him, and he wished to see if it also had been fulfilled. When he lifted up the pillow, the gold piece shone in his eyes, and next day he found another, and so it went on every time he got up. He gathered together a heap of gold, but at last he thought, "Of what use is all my gold to me if I stay at home? I will go forth and see the world." He then took leave of his parents, buckled on his hunter's pouch and gun, and went out into the world. It came to pass that one day he travelled through a dense forest, and when he came to the end of it, in the plain before him stood a fine castle. An old woman was standing with a wonderfully beautiful maiden looking out of one of the windows. The old woman, however, was a witch, and said to the maiden, "There comes one out of the forest who has a wonderful treasure. We must filch it from him, my dear daughter. It is more suitable for us than for him. He has a bird's heart about him, by means of which a gold piece lies every morning under his pillow." She told her what she was to do to get it, and what part she had to play, and finally threatened her and said with angry eyes, "And if you do not attend to what I say, it will be the worse for you." Now when the hunter came nearer, he spied the maiden and said to himself, "I have travelled about for such a long time. I will take a rest for once and enter that beautiful castle. I have certainly money enough." Nevertheless, the real reason was that he had caught sight of the pretty girl. He entered the house and was well received and courteously entertained. Before long he was so much in love with the young witch that he no longer thought of anything else, and only saw things as she saw them, and did what she desired. The old woman then said, "Now we must have the bird's heart. He will never miss it." She prepared a drink, and when it was ready, poured it into a cup and gave it to the maiden, who was to present it to the hunter. She did so, saying, "Now, my dearest, drink to me." So he took the cup, and when he had swallowed the drink, he brought up the heart of the bird. The girl had to take it away secretly and swallow it herself, for the old woman would have it so. From then on he found no more gold under his pillow, but it lay instead under that of the maiden, from whence the old woman fetched it away every morning. But he was so much in love and so befooled that he thought of nothing else but of passing his time with the girl. Then the old witch said, "We have the bird's heart, but we must also take the wishing cloak away from him." The girl answered, "We will leave him that. He has lost his wealth." The old woman was angry and said, "Such a mantle is a wonderful thing, and is seldom to be found in this world. I must and will have it." She gave the girl several blows and said that if she did not obey, it should fare ill with her. So she did the old woman's bidding, placed herself at the window and looked on the distant country as if she were very sorrowful. The hunter asked, "Why do you stand there so sorrowfully?" "Ah, my beloved," was her answer, "over yonder lies the garnet mountain where the precious stones grow. I long for them so much that when I think of them I feel quite sad, but who can get them? Only the birds. They fly and can reach them, but a man never." "Have you nothing else to complain of?" said the hunter. "I will soon remove that burden from your heart." With that he drew her under his mantle, wished himself on the garnet mountain, and in the twinkling of an eye they were sitting on it together. Precious stones were glistening on every side, so that it was a joy to see them, and together they gathered the finest and costliest of them. Now the old woman had, through her sorceries, contrived that the eyes of the hunter should become heavy. He said to the maiden, "We will sit down and rest a while. I am so tired that I can no longer stand on my feet." Then they sat down, and he laid his head in her lap and fell asleep. When he was asleep, she unfastened the mantle from his shoulders and wrapped herself in it, picked up the garnets and stones, and wished herself back at home with them. But when the hunter had had his sleep out and awoke, and perceived that his sweetheart had betrayed him and left him alone on the wild mountain, he said, "Oh, what treachery there is in the world," and sat down there in care and sorrow, not knowing what to do. But the mountain belonged to some wild and monstrous giants who dwelt on it and lived their lives there, and he had not sat long before he saw 3 of them coming towards him, so he lay down as if he were sunk in a deep sleep. Then the giants came up, and the first kicked him with his foot and said, "What sort of an earthworm is lying curled up here?" The second said, "Step upon him and kill him." But the third said, "That would indeed be worth your while. Just let him live. He cannot remain here, and when he climbs higher towards the summit of the mountain, the clouds will lay hold of him and bear him away." So saying, they passed by. But the hunter had paid heed to their words, and as soon as they were gone, he rose and climbed up to the summit of the mountain. And when he had sat there a while, a cloud floated towards him, caught him up, carried him away, and travelled about for a long time in the heavens. Then it sank lower and let itself down on a great cabbage garden, girt round by walls, so that he came softly to the ground on cabbages and vegetables. Then the hunter looked about him and said, "If I had but something to eat! I am so hungry, and my hunger will increase in course of time, but I see here neither apples nor pears, nor any sort of fruit anywhere, nothing but cabbages." But at length he thought, "At a pinch I can eat some of the leaves. They do not taste particularly good, but they will refresh me." With that he picked himself out a fine head of cabbage and ate it, but scarcely had he swallowed a couple of mouthfuls than he felt very strange and quite different. 4 legs grew on him, a large head and 2 thick ears, and he saw with horror that he was changed into an ass. Still, as his hunger increased every minute, and as the juicy leaves were suitable to his present nature, he went on eating with great zest. At last he arrived at a different kind of cabbage, but as soon as he had swallowed it, he again felt changed and reassumed his former human shape. Then the hunter lay down and slept off his fatigue. When he awoke next morning, he broke off one head of the bad cabbages and another of the good ones, and thought to himself, "This shall help me to get my own belongings again and punish treachery." Then he took the cabbages with him, climbed over the wall, and went forth to seek for the castle of his sweetheart. After wandering about for a couple of days, he was lucky enough to find it again. He dyed his face brown so that his own mother would not have known him, and begged for shelter. "I am so tired," said he, "that I can go no further." The witch asked, "Who are you, countryman, and what is your business?" "I am a king's messenger, and was sent out to seek the most delicious salad which grows beneath the sun. I have even been so fortunate as to find it, and am carrying it about with me. But the heat of the sun is so intense that the delicate cabbage threatens to wither, and I do not know if I can carry it any further." When the old woman heard of the exquisite salad, she was greedy and said, "Dear countryman, let me just taste this wonderful salad." "Why not?" answered he. "I have brought 2 heads with me, and will give you one of them." And he opened his pouch and handed her the bad cabbage. The witch suspected nothing amiss, and her mouth watered so for this new dish that she herself went into the kitchen and dressed it. When it was prepared, she could not wait until it was set on the table, but took a couple of leaves at once and put them in her mouth. But hardly had she swallowed them than she was deprived of her human shape, and she ran out into the courtyard in the form of an ass. Presently the servant entered the kitchen, saw the salad standing there ready prepared, and was about to carry it up, but on the way, according to habit, she was seized by the desire to taste, and she ate a couple of leaves. Instantly the magic power showed itself, and she likewise became an ass and ran out to the old woman, and the dish of salad fell to the ground. Meantime the messenger sat beside the beautiful girl, and as no one came with the salad, and she also was longing for it, she said, "I don't know what has become of the salad." The hunter thought the salad must have already taken effect, and said, "I will go to the kitchen and inquire about it." As he went down, he saw the 2 asses running about in the courtyard. The salad, however, was lying on the ground. "All right," said he, "the 2 have taken their portion." And he picked up the other leaves, laid them on the dish, and carried them to the maiden. "I bring you the delicate food myself," said he, "in order that you may not have to wait longer." Then she ate out of it, and was, like the others, immediately deprived of her human form, and ran out into the courtyard in the shape of an ass. After the hunter had washed his face so that the transformed ones could recognize him, he went down into the courtyard and said, "Now you shall receive the wages of your treachery," and bound them together, all 3, with one rope, and drove them along until he came to a mill. He knocked at the window. The miller put out his head and asked what he wanted. "I have 3 unmanageable beasts," answered he, "which I don't want to keep any longer. Will you take them in and give them food and stable room, and manage them as I tell you, and then I will pay you what you ask?" The miller said, "Why not? But how am I to manage them?" The hunter then said that he was to give 3 beatings and 1 meal daily to the old donkey, and that was the witch, 1 beating and 3 meals to the younger one, which was the servant girl, and to the youngest, which was the maiden, no beatings and 3 meals, for he could not bring himself to have the maiden beaten. After that he went back into the castle and found inside everything he needed. After a couple of days the miller came and said he must inform him that the old ass, which had received 3 beatings and only 1 meal daily, was dead. "The 2 others," he continued, "are certainly not dead, and are fed 3 times daily, but they are so sad that they cannot last much longer." The hunter was moved to pity, put away his anger, and told the miller to drive them back again to him. And when they came, he gave them some of the good salad, so that they became human again. The beautiful girl fell on her knees before him and said, "Ah, my beloved, forgive me for the evil I have done you. My mother drove me to do it. It was done against my will, for I love you dearly. Your wishing cloak hangs in a cupboard, and as for the bird's heart, I will take a vomiting potion." But he thought otherwise, and said, "Keep it. It is all the same, for I will take you for my true wife." So the wedding was celebrated, and they lived happily together until their death. Okay, the next story is story 123, and it is The Old Woman in the Wood. A poor servant girl was once travelling with the family with which she was in service through a great forest, and when they were in the middle of it, robbers came out of the thicket and murdered all they found. All perished together except the girl, who had jumped out of the carriage in a fright and hidden herself behind a tree. When the robbers had gone away with their booty, she came out and beheld the great disaster. Then she began to weep bitterly and said, "What can a poor girl like me do now? I do not know how to get out of the forest. No human being lives in it, so I must certainly starve." She walked about and looked for a road, but could find none. When it was evening, she seated herself under a tree, gave herself into God's keeping, and resolved to sit waiting there and not go away, no matter what might happen. When, however, she had sat there for a while, a white dove came flying to her with a little golden key in its mouth. It put the little key in her hand and said, "Do you see that great tree? Therein is a little lock. It opens with the tiny key, and there you will find food enough and suffer no more hunger." Then she went to the tree and opened it, and found milk in a little dish and white bread to break into it, so that she could eat her fill. When she was satisfied, she said, "It is now the time when the hens at home go to roost. I am so tired I could go to bed too." Then the dove flew to her again and brought another golden key in its bill, and said, "Open that tree there, and you will find a bed." So she opened it and found a beautiful white bed, and she prayed God to protect her during the night and lay down and slept. In the morning the dove came for the third time, and again brought a little key, and said, "Open that tree there, and you will find clothes." And when she opened it, she found garments beset with gold and with jewels, more splendid than those of any king's daughter. So she lived there for some time, and the dove came every day and provided her with all she needed, and it was a quiet, good life. Once, however, the dove came and said, "Will you do something for my sake?" "With all my heart," said the girl. Then said the little dove, "I will guide you to a small house. Enter it, and inside it an old woman will be sitting by the fire and will say, 'Good day.' But on your life give her no answer. Let her do what she will, but pass by her on the right side. Further on there is a door, which you will open, and you will enter into a room where a quantity of rings of all kinds are lying, amongst which are some magnificent ones with shining stones. Leave them, however, where they are, and seek out a plain one, which must likewise be amongst them, and bring it here to me as quickly as you can." The girl went to the little house and came to the door. There sat an old woman, who stared when she saw her and said, "Good day, my child." The girl gave her no answer and opened the door. "Where away?" cried the old woman, and seized her by the gown and wanted to hold her fast, saying, "That is my house. No one can go in there if I choose not to allow it." But the girl was silent, got away from her, and went straight into the room. Now there lay on the table an enormous quantity of rings, which gleamed and glittered before her eyes. She turned them over and looked for the plain one, but could not find it. While she was seeking, she saw the old woman, and how she was stealing away and wanting to get off with a bird cage which she had in her hand. So she went after her and took the cage out of her hand, and when she raised it up and looked into it, a bird was inside which had the plain ring in its bill. Then she took the ring and ran quite joyously home with it, and thought the little white dove would come and get the ring, but it did not. Then she leaned against a tree and determined to wait for the dove, and as she thus stood, it seemed just as if the tree was soft and pliant, and was letting its branches down. And suddenly the branches twined around her and were two arms, and when she looked around, the tree was a handsome man, who embraced and kissed her heartily, and said, "You have delivered me from the power of the old woman, who is a wicked witch. She had changed me into a tree, and every day for 2 hours I was a white dove, and so long as she possessed the ring I could not regain my human form." Then his servants and his horses, who had likewise been changed into trees, were freed from the enchantment also, and stood beside him. And he led them forth to his kingdom, for he was a king's son, and they married and lived happily. Okay, guys, time for the third and final story, which is story 124, and it's called The Three Brothers. There was once a man who had 3 sons, and nothing else in the world but the house in which he lived. Now each of the sons wished to have the house after his father's death, but the father loved them all alike and did not know what to do. He did not wish to sell the house because it had belonged to his forefathers, else he might have divided the money amongst them. At last a plan came into his head, and he said to his sons, "Go into the world and try each of you to learn a trade, and when you all come back, he who makes the best masterpiece shall have the house." The sons were well content with this, and the eldest determined to be a blacksmith, the second a barber, and the third a fencing master. They fixed a time when they should all come home again, and then each went his way. It chanced that they all found skilful masters who taught them their trades well. The blacksmith had to shoe the king's horses, and he thought to himself, the house is mine without doubt. The barber only shaved great people, and he too already looked upon the house as his own. The fencing master got many a blow, but he only bit his lip and let nothing vex him. For, said he to himself, if you are afraid of a blow, you'll never win the house. When the appointed time had gone by, the three brothers came back home to their father, but they did not know how to find the best opportunity for showing their skill, so they sat down and consulted together. As they were sitting thus, all at once a hare came running across the field. Aha, just in time, said the barber. So he took his basin and soap and lathered away until the hare came up. Then he soaped and shaved off the hare's whiskers while he was running at the top of his speed, and did not even cut his skin or injure a hair on his body. Well done, said the old man. Your brothers will have to exert themselves wonderfully, or the house will be yours. Soon after, up came a nobleman in his coach, dashing along at full speed. Now you shall see what I can do, father, said the blacksmith. So away he ran after the coach, took all 4 shoes off the feet of one of the horses while he was galloping, and put on him 4 new shoes without stopping him. You are a fine fellow, and as clever as your brother, said his father. I do not know to which I ought to give the house. Then the third son said, Father, let me have my turn, if you please. And as it was beginning to rain, he drew his sword and flourished it backwards and forwards above his head so fast that not a drop fell upon him. It rained still harder and harder, till at last it came down in torrents, but he only flourished his sword faster and faster, and remained as dry as if he were sitting in a house. When his father saw this, he was amazed, and said, This is the masterpiece, the house is yours. His brothers were satisfied with this, as was agreed beforehand, and as they loved one another very much, they all 3 stayed together in the house, followed their trades, and as they had learned them so well and were so clever, they earned a great deal of money. Thus they lived together happily until they grew old, and at last, when one of them fell sick and died, the 2 others grieved so sorely about it that they also fell ill, and soon after died. And because they had been so clever and had loved one another so much, they were all laid in the same grave. So guys, that is it for today's stories. I hope you enjoyed listening to them. I hope your Sunday is going marvellously, and you are ready and gearing up for another week ahead. I know I am. This channel is quite busy this week, so please do keep tuned in and see what shenanigans we are getting up to here at Manfa Makes. Tomorrow we'll bring Magazine Monday. Tuesday we'll bring winnings that myself and Mike won from Kerry the Arnie Elephant's birthday bash. Wednesday is a yarn haul, so if you want some midweek yarn porn, do please tune in. Thursday will be Tile of the Week, and Friday will be Crochet Catch Up, and then we're back to Saturday and Sunday stories. So there is a lot to look forward to. I hope to see you pop on over and spend your time with me. I really do appreciate it, and like I said, I hope the rest of your Sunday goes really well and you get some good quality crafting time in. So now that I've said half of my outro, let's do it properly. Stay safe, be kind, look after one another, get some good quality time in with your loved ones, and get some good quality crafting time in. I will see you in the next one or around the YouTube streets. Bye guys, love ya.